We were in danger 24/7. It didn't matter where we went, whether it was on the farms, whether it was taking a small break. There was no question that you were safe at any time. There was no question. You took your guns with you and you travelled, and your life was in God's hands. And that's what it was when we went. Even to go back to our own farm, the stress and the complications we had there. We had terrorists walking through our farm right through the middle of the night. On the one occasion, Tony went out with Bradley to see what the troubles were, and he was away for 2 hours. And myself and Gwyn were absolutely petrified, waiting patiently, hoping that he hadn't been shot or killed or anything. You know, it was guesswork. It really, really, really was guesswork. You couldn't move. And our neighbours had the same experience. Mount Hampden was an area, when the terrorists were coming through, our farm, in fact, was their pathway right through to Salisbury. And you know, to relive what we went through, I certainly wouldn't want to again. It was dreadful. But one thing we did every night was to set up the first aid kit in case of any contingencies that we might have needed for ourselves, and make sure that the bandages and the different things we needed in the first aid, should we have any contingency, was in fact done. And I can still remember Gwyn setting up the gun and putting the ammo in the gun and so on. During that period, it was in fact terribly, terribly frightening. Really was. Now, what the government did is they put in what was termed as the Agro Alert, and it was a special radio communication system, and this was installed in all our homes, every one of us in the area. I think they actually covered the whole country, but in our area now they put in these Agro Alerts, and what used to happen is we used to have roll calls at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then again another roll call at 6 o'clock in the evening. Now, they had to stay on 24 hours a day. Now, if there was any TERS in the area, the Agro Alert would come on to notify you to be vigilant that we have the TERS are in the area, so that all of us would be aware that there was trouble ahead. But equally, if it was us that had trouble, then we would actually notify them, and then all the neighbours right the way round in that particular area would be notified, because they would actually send an alarm, being Code 1. Code 1 means maximum alert, and that continued possibly for about 3 or 4 years. As soon as Mugabe came in, of course, that was all dismantled. But I found that very, very helpful, because you could perhaps get a bit of sleep at night, because if anything did go wrong, the alarm would go off for you. But the Agro Alert, I have the greatest respect really for. I mean, it was a wonderful system. It really was. And if you rang your bell, they had a scene in their offices that showed your area and showed exactly where your bell was. So when you rang it, they knew exactly who you were, where you were, and they could contact you back, I presume, either by phone or back on the Agro Alert. There could be at least 50 of us farmers, maybe 60, whatever. They would call us. You'd get on the Agro Alert now. They would say, we would like you to come at such and such a place, and that for a meeting. And when we went there, they would then brief us very fully, not on the Agro Alert, very, very fully as to what the position was, where they were, what they intended to do, and what we should do. and that it was a very, very full briefing. Now, that was also quite frequent during those latter years. I'm thinking now of 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. You know, quite often there were like an exhibition of the various equipment they had, and also sort of demonstrated how they used the equipment. And I can remember Tony and myself, and I think Wynne also joined us at the time, went to one of these meetings, and what they'd actually exhibit was very extensive, and also demonstrated quite a lot of the guns and different equipment and so on that they had to protect us. That was all the farmers would be briefed, and the coverage and tutoring from the security chaps was extremely good. And this was to sort of make us aware that, in fact, different things were available if we needed them. We used to have the army manning by Campbell Logan, that's on the old Missouri Road, and there would be probably about 6, 8, maybe 10 soldiers manning the road, and it would be a very, very cold winter's night, and very, very often we were able to have those very big black pots, and I would make either curry and rice for them or sadza and chisau. It depended on what we were able to do, but whatever it was hot food for the troopies while they were manning the stands. And yes, they were always very, very appreciative. They really were. When the farmers were attacked by the terrorists, it was usually on their farm, perhaps at the farm gate, so when they came in, they were attacked almost immediately. All the farmers had their houses fenced in with gates, so the gates had to be opened, and when the farmer got out to open the gate, very, very often they were attacked by the terrorists. Tony wasn't keen on putting a fence around the house, was he felt that should we encounter any problems at all, we would have nowhere to run. He felt that we were putting ourselves in danger by putting up a fence, because some of the farmers had in fact put 6-foot fences up, and I think it proved fatal to some of them. But that is one of the reasons we never ever put a fence around the house, because if we needed to, we could just run. It would be nothing for them to kill you. And I think that was very frequent as well, because a lot of farmers got murdered while on their farms. I mean, you didn't find out until the next day. In the meantime, the terrorists would just help themselves to whatever there was in the house, whether it was food or TV. They would cart everything off. And in some instances, they even burnt the place down. So it was really a horrid time. It really was. You didn't know what was going to happen, but this is partly why they installed the Agro Alert, because it made all of us completely aware that we had trouble in the camp. On the one occasion, I can remember Stephen, he'd taken the car door off and put a bracket and fixed his AK on that, and he went off to Udzi, which is quite far. It's near Matari. And when he got there, he actually told us that he had a convoy. Nobody would pass him, and they were all very frightened. The ambushes were quite frequent, because on these bush roads, I mean literally dirt roads, out in the bush, and I mean cars very seldom really went down there. A lot of people got ambushed and killed, and we had to be very vigilant that didn't happen to us. So this is why Stephen put the bracket and fastened the gun to it. So when he travelled, he felt that if there was anything, he actually did know how to handle the gun. So hopefully it might have protected him had he encountered anything of that nature. But yes, the farmers certainly had to be very vigilant, and many of them really did get clobbered.